that is, in my opinion, the core of our American exceptionalism. Now, when I say American exceptionalism, it's not that I'm thinking about it as our president has thought about it. I don't mean to say that we're a country that judges others. I don't even mean to say that we're a country that thinks categorically we're better than everyone else. Like I said at the outset, we have our own struggles in this family, this national family. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, we are different. And it's this document, this Constitution, that in large part sets off that difference. And here's why. The Constitution, the core values it contains, the things that I've just recited, all represent the best ideas for self-governance that the world has ever known. Never before in world history have those ideas ever come before together at the same time in the same place, except for in the United States Constitution. That's unique. That makes us exceptional. Now, the president, when asked about this, said, oh, yes, America's exceptional. We believe we're exceptional, just like the Brits think they're exceptional, just like the Germans might think they're exceptional, entirely missing the point and lacking the understanding of the founding of this country. And I bring that up today, Mr. Speaker, to get the word out, to make record in this House of Representatives that that's not at all what this country was about. Again, it doesn't mean we're judging. It doesn't mean we think we're better. We are different. We are unique. And we are the best experiment in self-governance the world has ever known. And the only thing that can mess that up, that can destroy that exceptionalism, is us. And that's what brings me to the floor at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. It's important stuff. I'd like to focus on, in my time remaining, Mr. Speaker, this debt that I've mentioned a few times now. Of all the issues that we face, of all the issues that we can properly and rightfully alleviate as a federal government, as a Congress, it's this spending. That is one of our chartered things, one of our enumerated powers, is to set a budget of this federal government size and its spending levels. And we have failed. As I talk with you tonight, we are nearly $17 trillion in debt, but that's not even the half of it. The worst part, Mr. Speaker, is this red section, this $100 trillion that's on the way over the next 25 or so years. You see how vertical that line goes? The real fear is that if we don't get our spending under control now, we might never be able to catch it. And the fact of the matter is, the drivers of our debt, social entitlement programs of Medicaid, the health care program of Medicare, Social Security, the net interest we owe ourselves and other countries, means that it's growing so fast, we may never be able to catch it. And that's a huge problem. Now, the slides I'm showing the House tonight are not Todd Rokita's slides. They are the House Budget Committee slides. The Democrats at the House Budget Committee don't disagree with the data. There certainly is disagreement about how to fix the problem. But more and more every day, and more astonishingly, I find out that many believe there's not a problem with that graph I just showed you. Here's what the federal government is spending its money on. I pulled out two pieces of the slide, two pieces of the pie, to show that that's what we vote on in terms of our budget. Non-defense discretionary and defense discretionary. We call this funding discretionary because we can dial it up or we can dial it down depending on our wishes and our votes here in this Congress and if the Senate agrees or doesn't. The President chimes in, albeit late, certainly not on time with his budget, but it all focuses on not more than about 40% of our total federal spending. The rest of it, Mr. Speaker, it's all on autopilot. We don't get to dial it up or dial it down. I don't get to decide what the retirees in this country will get in terms of a Social Security check. I don't get to decide what services they're going to get or what fees their health care providers are going to pay for those services through Medicare. That's all decided in the underlying substantive bills we've passed regarding those programs. And unless we amend those programs, unless we amend that law, we'll never get to what's driving most of our debt, representing about 2/3 of our federal spend. Again, Social Security, $768 billion per year. Medicare, $466 billion per year. Medicaid, $251 billion per year. The interest we owe ourselves and other countries for this debt, $223 billion per year. Other mandatory spending that I can't dial up or dial down, nor can you, Mr. Speaker, $547 billion per year, all on autopilot. Until we get to this, Mr. Speaker, we'll never get to reducing or even stabilizing our debt. And that's the problem. Some people have asked about military spending. Some people have asked about what about cutting it more, even though we've had drastic cuts already. Some people have asked about foreign aid spending. Some people have asked about earmark spending, and wouldn't that solve the problem? I believe that all that should be looked at, including the military. This is a Republican saying that. I believe there's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse in our military system. I think it's immoral to have that waste, fraud, and abuse and not get every possible dollar we can to the troops. But having said that, even if we had no military, it would only solve 20% of our federal spending. And of course, one of our first constitutional duties is to provide for the common defense. A military is necessary. It needs to be run a lot better, and there's a lack of leadership right now amongst our military ranks. It's not leading when you come here to the Congress asking more money for your pet projects and not doing what you can to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in the military. And I know there's waste, fraud, and abuse in the military because they can't even be audited. Not because there's a statute, Mr. Speaker, against them being audited. It's because they can't even bring themselves to an audit table to be audited. They are so big. They are so sloppy. They don't know what they spend their money on most of the time. And that is wrong. That's wrong for our troops. Regarding the social entitlement programs, regarding our health care programs, many folks come to me and say, wait a minute, I paid into those programs. I've been paying into those programs through my paycheck all my life. Don't you dare call them social entitlement programs. And you know what? They're right. We do pay in to these programs, most of us, through our working lives. But here's another truth, and here's a more specific truth, Mr. Speaker. Look at this graph. And on average, a couple who made $71,000 or so per year through their working lives will have paid in, this is about Medicare, will have paid in about 35% of what they're actually taking out of Medicare. And that 65% difference, Mr. Speaker, that comes out of our kids. That comes out of the grandchildren that don't yet exist yet. That's part of our national debt. That's part of the $17 trillion and the $100 trillion that's coming.